So to quickly review, the short assignment is to recreate what you viewed last Thursday, the Excel spreadsheet, and to show how the right organization of data elements can greatly improve your ability to automate the process. So we started doing some things on Thursday where we showed you how we set up this simple series. And in the assignment document, it's going to, it's going to explain, so it's going to tie the input, process, and output piece from last module into this assignment, this activity, and it's going to use the example of kinetic energy that we shared previously, and how the outputs are in joules, and how you have mass and velocity, and then you have a coefficient, and then now this is the calculation or data processing that's happening, right? So it's the 1/2 is the coefficient, and then the mass. You can keep the mass constant, vary the velocity, or vice versa. Vary the mass, keep the velocity constant. And you get a chance to see how the output in joules varies based on those changes. Another cool part of the automation involves something called OLE, object linking and embedding. And this is just cool, but if you put a little bit of thought into how to organize and arrange the data, and again, you know, with an eye for how you can automate the calculation of a series, you can use fill downs, but aside from that, you can take the result and the graph that results from it, the actual chart, and that itself is an object. And oftentimes in scientific computing scenarios, you find that you have to repeat a series of trials, right? You have to walk through a series of data collection and data calculation and data analysis. So there's this iterative nature. You have to do it over and over and over again. And it sucks having to start over again from scratch, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be nice if you could arrange things so all you're doing is changing the certain constants or the certain elements? And then more importantly, if you're presenting your results, wouldn't it be neat if the graphical representations updated automatically in your reports? I mean, wouldn't that be nice? So you can take this graph, this entire chart, and you can paste it into a Word document. And if you copy it, but then paste it into Word, and this is just a quick example of what I'm talking about here. So I want you to see the before and after effect. Let's take our mass example. So we're changing mass. We're holding velocity constant. And I want to increase the rate with each calculation in this series by 50% instead of 25%. So I'm going to put 1.5 here. And it looks like, okay, I'm seeing a more dramatic increase, yeah. And seeing that in real time is really helpful. So I make that one change. That changes all the factors in these calculations, changes all the outcomes that result from the data processing, the equation, and then that changes the graph. If I take this and I copy it, I have two options. I can copy it or I can copy it as a picture. A lot of times people copy it as a picture and then they paste it and it's a JPEG and they can resize it and that's nice, but it's not dynamic. Object linking and embedding, if you hit copy and then you open up a new document, a Word document, and I'm going to make the layout landscape because I'm going to have two of these side by side. And so I'm going to paste. And I want you to notice the options, right? So I can paste, I can keep the source formatting and embed the workbook. That's where the embedding, linking and embedding comes in. So I'm actually linking the spreadsheet inside this Word document. If I choose the first option, it's just going to go ahead and paste an image. But if I keep going, use destination theme, keep source formatting, picture. Okay, so obviously the better option is this embedding, right? Linking and embedding. I'll choose this one. So I want to embed the workbook. So this is a Word document and it represents the graphical output of my calculation series. And that's kinetic energy as mass increases. With a factor of 50% increases at every increment, right? And now I've got my insert point right here. And I'm going to go instead to the velocity. I'm going to increase this by 1.5. And what I have here is a whole different scale now. Because we're increasing the velocity 50% with each iteration, and that velocity is squared, you see what happens with an exponential relationship, right? You have this geometric increase. But it's often good when you're comparing results, and sometimes you don't see the difference until you put them side by side. So I'm going to select this as well, and I'm going to copy, not the image, copy, not the image, but the actual line graph. I'm going to go back to my Word document, and I'm going to paste right here with my insertion point. All right, so yeah, I wanted those side by side. So one of the things I can do, all right, well, that's another topic for another time, but it has a lot to do with the sizing, sometimes changing the layout and making the margins a little thinner will give you enough, yeah, you might be able to just drag it. I wanted them side by side, but they're kind of big. So let's see if I can just do, there we go. That's all it was. Now you notice when I click on this, I have to be careful. If I click on the wrong element inside here, I'm resizing the wrong thing. So you don't want to click inside, you want to click just the whole object. And then I'm going to resize this one first. And then resize this one. All right, everybody see that? Kinetic energy as mass increases, kinetic energy as velocity increases. I want you to notice the difference between the two. I increased mass by 50%, and so the kinetic energy rose from the starting value, which was pretty modest in the first case, right? It's the same in both trials. Both first trials have the same kinetic energy. But if I increase by increasing mass 50%, the top of my scale is 70,000 joules, right? 70 kilojoules. On this side, you notice the line is much steeper and it's 3.5 million joules. So what am I saying? I'm changing mass by 50%. I'm changing velocity by 50%. Which one's gonna inflict more harm? Which one's gonna release more energy? It's pretty obvious when you see the scale of increase, right? Now, why did we do object linking and embedding? I'm going to go back to my diagram here, and I'm going to say, well, you know, I think it might have been actually a little more obvious in some ways when it was 25% increase, right? Because the scale is going to increase dramatically for velocity changes anyway, but not so much for mass. So I want to represent the outcomes in a manner that draw out those differences. So I make the change in kinetic energy, and I see this dramatic increase. And so I still have a curve. I still have an obvious impression of a exponential or geometric relationship. When I go back to mass and I increase by 1.25 or 25%, there's a slight curve, you know, not nearly as much. So I want to go back to my Word document because I have to copy and paste all over again, right? Yeah? No. No, I don't. If you use the proper object linking and embedding option, what you end up with are real-time changes. And you'll see here that embedding embeds the worksheet inside the Word document. So I have to make the changes inside the Word document directly. When I click into this, this header will turn into Excel, and that's not going to go very well because it's confusing. You're in Word, you click on this, all of a sudden you have Excel menus. It throws people. In my experience, and this is important to demonstrate the distinction, right? So embedding takes the entire worksheet and puts it inside there, and you can go inside there and you can start crunching and munching, right? And it says, oh, this is an Excel matter, so we're going to change out the menus, and then it kind of flips on you. You're like, wait a minute, I'm in Word. If you link instead of embed, what you see is a case where you don't have to copy and paste all over again. Everything you do in real time updates. If it changes here on this screen, you go to the Word document and it changes in the Word document. The assignment details and the video that go with it demonstrate the linking method, not the embedded method. But I wanted to explain better this season the difference between linking and embedding. There are reasons why you would want to do embedding. Depending on the experimental scenario, you might want to have quicker access to the data features for a given output, right? And that's convenient, and people can modify that stuff on the fly. I wanted to give you a flavor for how this feature works and to cue you that when you're first starting, you want to play with linking, and then you want to give this a try. So as you complete the assignment I'm going to post, you're going to step through the process of building your own kinetic energy progression, first with changes in mass, then with changes in velocity, and the YouTube video shows you step by step what to do and how to follow. And then you can copy and paste that with the linking option into Word, and it's going to ask you to go ahead and then get screenshots of the Excel spreadsheets finished, first mass and then velocity, and then your Word document showing the linking and embedding, right? Or the linking. Are there any questions about the assignment?
Did you say when it's going to be due? That's all.
So what we'd like to do is give you until next class to do the Excel assignment, this assignment. The solution involving PG Book or Linux, we wanted to give people through the end of the week. So the solution and the assignment would be due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this one should take everybody about 30 minutes to watch the video, and then another 30 minutes to an hour to step through it yourself, and then you post the results. And again, the objective, the student learning outcome we're shooting for is so that you can appreciate the power of proper arrangement with data elements, and how some are going to be arranged in a series and some are going to be arranged as constants or lookups, right? And when we get to the database side of things in the next module, we're going to call that a lookup table. So the constants are like lookup tables, fixed values that don't change. The other data tables have richly a rich variety of changes in particular data elements, right? And so we'll be using databases in some cases, and then we're going to be using spreadsheets where the numbers matter more. So anytime we have a numerical element, we have simple variable references, and we have simple formulas. If we have statistical analysis and so on, it's the spreadsheet is a tool of choice. And then next module we get more into the database side. All right. So any other questions before we clear the screen on your assignment?
So we're getting 2 assignments today.
You'll get an assignment today. You'll get the solution later today. But I'm going to recreate the walkthrough video. You'll have a different and better walkthrough video. Much like what we're doing now, there's a different and better walkthrough video for the assignment. I have to recreate the walkthrough for your solution because it's a new solution. It's not the same one we did in the class last year. So later tonight, by noon tomorrow, you'll see the solution posted.
Okay.
But you'll have through 11:59 p.m. Saturday to complete your first attempt of the assessment and to complete Module 2 solution. And you want to complete the Module 2 solution before you attempt the assessment.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you for asking that. Did anyone else have a question? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second. So the solution for Module 2 is going to involve use of your virtual machine. And for those of you that have, the good news is for those of you that have just a Linux virtual machine created because the PG book didn't import, this round of activity doesn't involve any of the special applications in the PG book virtual machine. And so you can perform each of the steps the same way, whether you have PG book or you just have Linux. Okay. And you're not going to have to have access until the start of the next module. So once again, we did restructure some of the content to allow some folks who are still getting their access in place. But all right, so on Thursday we said that when you're working with scientific computing applications, you have to be comfortable in the terminal. And if you're using the Linux virtual machine, you would click here and then start typing terminal, and then it would give you a terminal option. In the PG book virtual machine, it's already showing, so you just click on this. And on Thursday, we explained that there were 3 things that typically derail a productive command line, experience for people when they're trying to use scientific computing applications. Sometimes the software doesn't work because it isn't installed. And then sometimes the software doesn't work because they're not in the right directory. There's a path issue, right? So they're executing a command that doesn't exist in the directory. So I do this. Well, let's take the first case. I'll give you an example of the first case. How many of you have heard of text editors? And how many computer science people do I have in the audience?
I'm here.
Okay. So you have, depending on the system that you're using, you get to torture yourself with things like VI and Emacs. And a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when people first started with computers, there were no GUIs, there was no drag and drop, there were no icons. You couldn't do anything that way. And it was painful. But more importantly, whenever you wrote programs, you had to work with text editors. And it's important to be able to work around in a scientific computing environment with a text editor. I can't stand VI or Emacs. I don't like teaching them to people. I like something that's more like Notepad. If I have to get into something where I have to work with raw text, if I went to all the trouble to provide a GUI-based environment, I'd like to be able to do simple things like copy and paste or cut, right? So there's a text editor that you can install on your PG Book virtual machine or on the Linux machine. It's called Nano. But remember, on Thursday, we were highlighting the 3 pitfalls or potholes or most common problems and how to resolve them, right? And so the solution is framed on those 3 things. So there's a piece that has to do with installing software and the right way to do that. And then there's a piece about navigating in the directories because, it's not running because you're not in the right directory. It's in a different directory. And then there's a third piece about the permissions, right? So you're actually walking through your own experience of how to install an app, how to navigate in directories, how to change permissions. That's what we're doing for our solution. And once again, there's going to be a companion video that doesn't provide this background or the extra details from the course, but we want that too. So that's why we're doing this here. So I'm going to try to use my command line interface, and I'm going to type nano. And oh my gosh, it's actually installed. Okay, so for well, this is an updated version of the PG Book virtual machine. So I'm going to pick a different app that doesn't run when you I'll pick a different app that you're supposed to try to start, and then it doesn't start because it isn't installed, and then you install it. But all right, so let's try this. All right, so I'm going to exit. These are Control X. So whenever you see this caret symbol, that's a Control X. I'm going to exit out of here. Let's try GPedit. Oh, there we go. That's perfect. Okay, so GPedit is it's a relatively small application that allows you to get in the weeds with disk partitions. So if you're trying to copy data files between your virtual machine and thumb drives, sometimes you have partition or file system issues. So GPedit's a great little tool. So yeah, we'll make the substitution. You try to run some software, it can't find it. Now, it could be because it's a path issue, but in this case, it's because it doesn't exist, it isn't installed, right? So in order to install it, what you're going to do is make sure that your PG Book VM has a connection to the internet, and you may have to basically click on the settings option or go into the configuration and then pull up the wireless in your house and connect to your wireless. But more often than not, if you just use the PG book, it should be pulling the internet. You should be able to get out on the internet and connect. And so one of the first things you want to do for your solution before you start, so you don't get frustrated, is just to open the Firefox web browser and make sure you're connected. I am connected here. I'm going to run apt-get install gpedit. Oh yeah, so we ran into this before, and that has to do with the fact that we have a disk in the tray. So let's go ahead and clear that so we don't have this issue. And that'll be another step that we work for the prep for the solution. So I'm going to shut this down real quick. And then as that's shutting down, I'm going to open up my VirtualBox. And as soon as VirtualBox is closed, yeah, come on. Sometimes it takes a while. There we go. So some of these changes that you want to work, you can't do while it's running. As soon as the screen goes, I don't want to rush it or force it. It has to run this routine to keep it proper. Right. You go into settings, and then under storage, you'll notice that there shouldn't be anything in the tray. It says remove the disk from the virtual drive. But even if you remove the disk from the virtual drive, if you tried to use the VirtualBox extensions because you wanted better graphics or whatever, if you try to remove the disk from the virtual drive and you start that up again, it's still gonna create a problem, even when there's nothing in the tray. So even when an install image is not loaded, whether it's guest editions for better graphics and file sharing and stuff, doesn't matter. So what you want to do is make that change and then go back in and delete this thing. Remove the DVD drive. Just take it out. I don't even want one. And then when you go to system, sometimes you'll see optical is removed, other times, if it's checked, make sure you uncheck it. So storage doesn't have a disk anymore. If you need to add it back or you need to change an image file, you can always add it back. But that change will prevent the error that you just saw when we're connected. I am going to check one setting here on network just to make sure. Yeah, it's bridged. So a lot of times if you're having problems connecting to the internet, if you just select bridged adapter, or vice versa. If it's bridged adapter and you can't connect to the internet, change it back to NAT, and that'll resolve the network connection issue if you run into that. Any questions so far about how to resolve common issues with your all right, so PG book. How many of the group today do not have the, oh, yeah, I opened up the Ubuntu. Instead of the PG book. We're still going to do the same thing. So whether you're using Linux or you're using the PG book VM, right? The first thing I'm going to do is elevate my own privileges so that I have super user. So I'm going to enter sudo su. It's going to ask me to put in my password again. I'm going to enter PG book just like I did before. And now I have administrative privileges. If I try to run gpedit, it's not going to find the command. So once again, the big three headaches, working command line, stuff isn't installed, we're not in the right directory, or we don't have the right permissions. So we're going to install this. I'm going to use the apt-get install gpedit command. And I'm still having the same, it could be that this thing was locked. Let me go back to my, let me go back to this one. I think I might have been in the wrong. Oh yeah, so it says it's empty. I'm going to remove it. I go back to system. I'm going to pick optical. Sorry for the confusion, folks. You see what I did? I got into this Linux machine instead of the PG book machine when I was making the setting changes. I was even referring to having to uncheck the optical. Yes? Okay. Okay, so let's start this again. You can run more than one virtual machine at a time if you have enough RAM on your system. All right, so we could, it could be that gpedit was not the greatest example of an application to install, and there could be some elements of that choice that are prompting for disks, because gpedit is a disk utility. And if there's a different version of that thing installed on your virtual machine, that one, I'm going to find an application that's easier and trouble-free to install that isn't previously installed on there. It'll be a part of the criteria in the solution assignment document. It'll be listed in the rubric. I'll have a screenshot of it. I'll have the steps to follow in the video. We're going to move on because our time is limited and I want to cover the other two examples. So I'll find another app that's a good app to install. Sometimes in Linux distributions, they don't come with a built-in firewall, and you can install unsophisticated or uncomplicated firewall. UFW, that's a good one to load. So sometimes when you have network issues, you can make changes with your virtual machine by having a firewall app. So I'll find something that's appropriate. But the important thing to remember is that you have to have elevated privileges to do this. So you're going to enter your password again. Once you get the prompt, you're going to enter a very simple command, apt-get install, and then my app, whatever it is we're going to decide for the app. Are there any questions about this first third of the solution?
I'm looking. I think I can replicate that.
Yeah.
If I get any issues, would the video be available?
Yeah, the video will be available before the solution posts.
Okay.
So, and it'll be part of the assignment. So we'll have all that. All right. So the second piece of this is directories. And if we look at directories, on Thursday, we explained some things about permissions. And if we look at a directory, we could have need for a data folder, right? So here we have a directory called music. In my home folder for the PG book user, I have pictures, I have public. We created a directory called sensor2, and oh, you see the nano link right here. So nano was ready to take whatever I created in nano and typed out in the text editor and store it there. That's pretty cool. It's nice and automatic. I have a templates directory and a videos directory in your home directory. So I want to create a data folder, or let's go with sensor2. I like this idea of sensor2. So if I try to run something inside sensor2, so I change directories and go into sensor2. And let's see what's in here. There's nothing in here. Basically, you're going to need to step through a series of commands to create a directory. So we're going to create, we'll call this so now I've created a directory called make directory upload data. So if I repeat the command inside the sensor2 directory, I now have a new directory. And in your solution, what you'll find is that something doesn't work unless you navigate up or down in the path to the right directory to issue the command. And that's the second piece of what you have to do. So you're working with directories, you're navigating directories, you're getting around in directories. That's the second piece of your solution. Are there any questions about the second part of your solution?
No, well, not from me.
Okay. Anyone else?
Probably not until I started.
Say again?
Probably not until I start to work it out
Okay. All right, so one more thing that you're going to do is you're going to use some permission commands. And you'll notice that the default permission that was created for the upload data directory is that everybody in the world can read and execute it. And we're going to say that this is a sensor that we use for our scientific computing applications that validates some medical piece of information. Let's say it's sensitive medical information. So the sensor data that we're reading is for a diagnostic machine, and then we're capturing that data and we're gonna take the user identities out of it. But while the sensor is working on that medical instrument, all the data from those patients is loading up into the upload data directory. Is everybody with me so far?
Yes.
And one of the requirements of your use with your scientific computing application is to make sure that the proper permissions are set, and you do not want anyone other than the owner of that directory to have access to it. So you want the owner to have read, write, and execute. That doesn't need any changes. You don't want anybody in a group. You haven't established groups. You don't want group membership changes to inadvertently expose sensitive medical information. So you want to zero out the second of 3 permission settings. It's read and execute right now. You want it no read, no write, no execute, right? So you want to see dash, 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 just like this up here. So what you're going to do is use the change mod command. And here's a great example of how the path doesn't work. So I'm going to issue the change mod command after I go into upload data. So now I'm inside upload data, right? And there's nothing in this directory right now, but I want to change the permissions. So I'm going to do change mod 700. And that combination of numbers, that's going to be an addendum to your study guide. It is going to explain how you change permissions in Linux. That particular command is going to turn on read, write, and execute, or leave on read, write, and execute. It's going to zero out the group and other permissions. So, and I'm going to say upload data. Ah, oh no. This is the very thing I was talking about. So here I am trying to work a permissions change, and it's not an installation issue. This doesn't involve software that isn't loaded. What's the magic word you see in there? No such file or directory. Well, we just created the directory. We know that directory exists. However, I'm issuing the change mode command to modify the security for the upload data folder within the upload data folder. Put another way, I'm inside this folder. There's no second child folder called upload data inside the upload data parent folder. That's why this command isn't working. That's the other, again, there are 3 things that cause headaches for effective use of scientific computing applications, and this is, you're witnessing one of them right here. The easiest way to resolve this is to get into the right path or location. To do that, I'm going to issue this command, I'm just going to back up, space, space, dot, dot, means I'm going to go back up one level. Now if I do a list, oh, now I'm in the sensor2 directory, and that does have a directory called upload data. So now if I issue the same command I tried to do just a moment ago, that command, it should find the upload data directory that's inside the sensor2 directory, because that's where I am right now, right? I created a subdirectory inside the parent directory. So when I hit this, I get nothing, which is the desired result. I don't see anything come back other than a blinking prompt. How do I know it worked? I go back up to list the directory with some more detail. And what you see is that all the permissions I wanted to remove are now removed. So it's either not installed or updated properly. You're not in the right place on the path. You have to navigate up and down and around directories, especially when you're creating different directories. You have to be mindful of where all the subdirectories and grandchild folders are. And then the other thing you need to be able to do to access stuff is change permissions. And so what you've seen here is a combination of the two conditions interacting. I try to change the security permissions. I couldn't. It was looking for upload data, but I was inside upload data. And it was looking inside upload data for another directory called upload data. I couldn't find it. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of, maybe?
I'm not too sure. That's why I didn't want to say anything.
Well, that's okay. All right. So what we'll do is get the solution assignment documentation together, and then I'll record the video to walk through the steps for the solution. Just remember, it's in 3 main parts. You're doing 3 series of tasks, one associated with application installation, one associated with directory creation and navigation, and the third one that has to do with permissions, right? You have to be able to view the contents of directories and then adjust the permissions. It's kind of like a waltz, 1, 2, 3. All right. Unless there were other questions, I'm going to go ahead and close for now. I appreciate your patience while we're still sorting some things out. If you don't yet have a Linux virtual machine or the PG virtual machine in place, you're going to want to email me to get that squared away before we get to the next class. All right. All right then. I'll see you on Thursday. Please watch for the first assignment and then the solution.
Okay. See you Thursday. And to reiterate, those assignments are going to be due Saturday and not before class Thursday.
The first assignment with Excel will be due before the next class.
Okay.
But it's a short assignment. The solution is due by Saturday, 11:59 p.m. And
Okay. Thank you.
you want to try your first attempt at the module 2 solution by that time. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Good day and goodbye.
All right. See you, sir.
See you.